Okay, and the common ancestor to all plants is thought to be an algae called, do you remember? The charophytes. Okay, this is our, well, an ancestor to charophytes is probably the same ancestor which led to plants. So over here on this end, we would put a charophyte-like ancestor. All right. All right, and the basal group that we're going to cover in this class is bryophytes. Well, what's the common name for bryophytes? Yeah, these are mosses. Okay, bryophytes have characteristics of all plants, including apical meristems.
That's a word.
All right, the apical meristem, what that means is they have areas which can continue to grow on their apical ends or at the very end. So if you think of grass, when you mow the grass, you can cut it, but it still grows right where you cut it. Okay? It can keep on growing at that very end. The meristem is the area that allows for mitosis. Okay? It also has a dependent embryo. Okay, so when the zygote is formed through fertilization, it is in some sort of other tissue, some other plant tissue that provides it nutrients. That's the dependent embryo. And then it also has sporopollen, which is a specific polymer found in the spores.
Is sporopollen unique to bryophytes?
No, it's all plants.
Oh.
All right, our next group are our pterophytes, okay, also known as ferns, okay? All right, ferns have a few more characters than bryophytes, including, what are some of the characteristics pterophytes have? Can you help me out here?
They have a vascular system, don't they?
They do, okay? Vascular system. So this is like arteries and veins, a way to carry water and nutrients throughout their plant. Okay, what else do they have?
Leaves.
They have leaves. They don't have seeds. Yeah. Well, that's not a trait. That's something they don't have. But you're, I mean, you're good. Good thinking. Throwing it out there. Cuticle. Okay. What's the cuticle? So it's a waxy layer on the leaves that keeps it from drying out. Roots. Okay, so for absorbing nutrients in the soil. Lignin. All right, lignin is also, should have been in your Instagram pictures, right? This is the structure that allows, if you have lots of it, allows things to grow big and tall, such as gymnosperms. All right, what else? Leaves, cuticle, roots, lignin. There's one other. I can't think of what it is. We'll come back. I have it in my notes. No, you do. Do what I say, not what I do. Okay? All right, the next two groups then are gymnosperms and angiosperms. What's that? That is it. Okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah. I was, yeah. All right, you're good. Okay, gymnosperms have seeds, and pollen. And angiosperms do as well. But angiosperms also have flowers and fruit.
We had to have us memorized for the test again.
Yeah.
Awesome.
This is easy stuff though, right?
This is so much easier.
Yeah.
This is
This actually is basically
Let's start talking about the word bank again.
This is even more fun. All right, so we're going to do the moss life cycle, okay? And we're going to start. Okay, all plants have alteration of generations between haploid and diploid organisms. Well, I guess they're the same organism, but in their life cycle. We're going to start with these spores. Which are haploid. Okay, spores, when they find a healthy place to land, they will germinate and they will form these little filamentous structures called protonema. All right, and that will eventually become a kind of adult structure called the gametophyte. Okay, and it makes female gametophytes and male gametophytes. Oops.
So it makes both of them, or it makes either or?
No, well, yeah, one becomes a male, one becomes a female. Yeah. Does not make both of them. Okay, on the end of the male gametophyte, so at this very end here, I'm going to zoom in.
Sorry, just a sec. The difference between the male and the female is the way the branches turn?
No.
There's no difference?
I just randomly threw on some branches there. Okay. Yeah, the difference is in these, the ends, these kind of microscopic cup-shaped structures. The males make, they're called antheridiums. Okay, and guess what they produce?
Anthrax.
Spores.
Sperm. All right, so these are the gametes. It's a gametophyte. It's going to make the gametes. All right. Okay, on the end of the female gametophyte, you have the archegonium. And guess what it makes? An egg. Okay, when two gametophytes fall in love, get married in temple, and they need a stream of water in order for the sperm to go and find the egg. Fertilization will ensue. And then within the archegonium, we now have a diploid. What would you call this?
Zygote.
Zygote. Okay, good. All right, this zygote, but the archegonium itself it's still haploid, right? Only the zygote is diploid, where fertilization took place. It's going to go through mitosis and divide and form this embryo. Okay, and it's getting nutrients from the archegonium. So here we have the dependent embryo, the characterization of found in all plants. All right, so we're going to draw the gametophyte again. And what happens is this embryo grows into a structure Yep, that's horrible. That's my attempt for 3D.
Yeah, what's happening?
Okay, so I'll show you the different parts. This is the foot. Okay, so this is what's getting nutrients from the gametophore. This little stalk here is called the seta. And then this structure is called the sporangium. And in here you have little spores forming. The sporangium is also called the capsule. All right, there's usually a little cap on here called the calyptra. And then it has little teeth at the top of this cone-like structure. Those are called the peristome. And they can extend and open up or contract and close the peristome depending on the condition. So if it's nice and wet, which is what these spores are going to need, it'll open up and it'll release the spores. If it's dry, it'll close up. Okay, this whole thing is called the sporophyte. And as you remember, it's our diploid structure. But these little spores in here go through meiosis and then are released, and then we start all over again. So that's the moss life cycle. Okay, and you guys found moss on trees and stuff, right? If you look really, really closely, you can find little ones with these little brown things sticking out of them. Those are the sporophytes. Okay? But not all of them have them, just the females are going to have the sporophytes coming out of them. The male gametophytes, they just produce sperm. So they aren't going to have a gametophyte, or sorry, a sporophyte coming out of them. What's that? This one? Okay, but you can, to help you remember them, you can just think of what they're doing. The sporophyte is making spores. So it's creating a little chamber where meiosis can take place to make those spores. The gametophyte is making the gametes. Okay, and you have a male and a female gametophyte called the archegonium and the antheridium. Okay. You good?
Okay. Is this something that you had us draw or something that like fill in?
Just fill in.
Oh,
But if you can draw it, you can fill it in.
probably.
Hopefully. Exactly. All right, so the moss life cycle is very similar to the fern life cycle. That's what we're going to draw right now.
And we're all gonna mix them up.
All right, so we're going to start with our spores again. Our spores are haploid. These spores are going to germinate. They aren't going to make a protonoma. They're just going to make a multicellular structure. But then they also make this bigger, weird-looking thing, like heart-shaped. Okay, it has these rhizoids, which implant into the ground. And then they are heterosporous, which means they have within the same, or this is the gametophyte.
What is the thing before?
Nothing. It's just going through mitosis, growing. But they have on that same gametophyte, in one area, they'll have archegonium. So same structure as the moss. Okay, what's the archegonium going to have? Egg. Well, I guess I'll do green stuff. Egg. And then in another spot, they'll have the antheridium.
So, the little
Can you zoom
mountains,
in?
those are important.
Yeah, those are them. Those are the little archegonium or antheridium.
The mountains are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Smooth.
And the antheridium are going to produce sperm. Okay, with the stream of water, the sperm can go into the archegonium. And fertilization will occur. And then within the archegonium, what do you have?
Zygote.
Good. A zygote and then an embryo. The difference in this, however, in ferns is eventually the gametophyte is discarded and no longer needed. Whereas in the moss, it depends on the gametophyte, the sporophyte does. Okay, so this embryo will eventually develop into this fiddlehead. And then the gametophyte isn't needed anymore. Okay, it'll mature into a sporophyte. Okay, and then this is now then called a frond. And then on the underside of these leaves, you have little areas called sori. And this is where, if you zoomed in there, you could see a sporangium. And this is where you have meiosis occurring. To form your spores.
So it's exactly the same thing, but just a different shape.
Yeah, very similar. Differences are the sporophyte does not need the gametophyte eventually. Eventually it grows out of it. And then we have a gametophyte which has both archegonium and antheridium. Okay, so they are heterosporous. They can make both types. Okay, and one other structure. They have these root-like structures called rhizomes. Once they become a sporophyte, mature sporophyte. Okay, any questions? All right, where do you find ferns and mosses? Yeah, sorry, question first.
Okay, is the rhizoids and rhizomes like similar in structure, like what makes them different?
So rhizoids are not as big. So a gametophyte is actually a really, really small structure. So it's more for anchoring, whereas a rhizome is a root. It actually absorbs things. Okay, so where do you find ferns and where do you not find ferns and moss? Okay, in the desert. Why? It's dry, yeah. So you have, in order for them to reproduce, they have to have water. So you're going to find ferns and moss only where there is water available. Okay? Another thing about moss and ferns is they don't need soil. So many species don't need soil in order to start growing. So moss will grow on concrete, right? Or you'll find them as the first inhabitants after a volcanic area, a molten lava flow has cooled off. Ferns and mosses will be the first ones in there. And after they've been there a while, their old decaying ferns and mosses will create that soil layer that then other things can grow on top of it. Yeah?
So when ferns are growing in trees and stuff, are they growing there, or are they actually like taking nutrients from the tree? Like,
It probably depends on the fern. But yeah, usually they don't need a lot, right? So they don't need soil, so they can just take whatever's on the surface as far as moisture and nutrients. All right, any other questions? Okay, we've got a worksheet for the last 15 minutes, which has lots of blanks for you guys to fill in.
Good work, man.
Ooh.